Welcome back to the Nerd Hour. This is Hour 2, and where we get even nerdier. Nerd harder. Alright, so we're kind of touching on the topic of destroying a franchise. Of the difference between why is it that the Star Wars prequel movies are deeply offensive, but Star Trek 2009 and Wrath of Khan Part 2 is like I didn't even see the second one. It's like they suck. I know they suck. It doesn't destroy Star Trek for me. Star Trek: The Next Generation is still awesome. Star Trek Deep Space Nine is super awesome. Star Trek Voyager still sucks.
Well, part of that, I mean, with the prequels, it's in the official mainstream canon, whereas the J. Abrams Star Trek are their own separate universe. I mean, you know, I'm a comic book nerd. If they make a Spider-Man movie I think is shit, well, it's its own thing. I can ignore it. If something that really butt-fucks the franchise happens in the actual comic, like Brand New Day or One More Day.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up.
That has butt-fucked it for me.
All right, Bechtloff, what is One More Day, and why did it bend over Spider-Man as if he were Spider-Woman?
All right, well...
Ooh, patriarchy joke.
One More Day, it's Spider-Man...
Sorry, one more aside, just with the page. Go watch Maddox's video on the Spider-Woman's ass is a big ass deal. Great video. But, sorry, I'll stop interrupting. What is One More Day?
You know what? I'll pimp my video. I have a video on Spider-Woman's ass and left-wing Puritanism.
Yes, go watch that.
But my video, I actually I laid out like a whole bunch of points. I got a notepad full of outlines, and I just lost my shit and started just like screaming like go away! Why won't you social justice warriors go away? Leave us alone!
Folks, Bechtloff has a really good YouTube channel. I only watch about half your videos because half the time you're talking about Pokemon or something, and I don't even know what it is. But then you talk about Mega Man, and I do know what you're talking about. And when he's talking about something that I give half of a shit about, it's excellent. Great videos.
Yeah, you'll care about easily half of what I talk about. That's
yeah, exactly. Subscribe to it. If in the video title it's like what is a Pikachu? I don't know. Don't care. Don't watch it. But then he's going to talk about something you like. And he's very cogent and charismatic and handsome and.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. No homo. So One More Day. Back in the 80s, they had Spider-Man get married to Mary Jane.
Which was it was a 30-year love triangle. Oh, are Ross and Jane going to get together? Whatever the Friends bullshit. It was like the sexual tension had lasted for 30 years or 50 years or whatever, and then they had him get married.
Now, I really like that. I started reading comics in the 90s, so I never had it any other way. Now, of course, I read old issues, the reprints and trades and all, but it wasn't what I grew up with. So I guess I can kind of understand why writers are like, well, it's not like I remember. But I like the dynamic. I like the dynamic because it's got that cop wife dynamic. Because he goes out to be Spider-Man. She don't know if he's coming back. You know what I mean? He could be killed by any supervillain. Fucking Galactus could step on him. Hell, a mugger could get a lucky shot. You don't know.
It sounds like a wonderful growth of the character to me.
I really liked him being married. Now, the problem is a lot of writers didn't, because I see this in drama in particular, but I see this especially in superhero comics. They have a hard time writing a stable fucking relationship. Like, all they know how to do is get a character together with someone and break them up. That's all the fuck writers seem to know how to do anymore. They don't seem to understand that there is drama within an actual stable, healthy relationship.
That's funny. I'm actually trying to write a post right now about a stable, healthy relationship, because it really is the most challenging thing you can do. And it's as a society, we are so mercenary and callow. Like the entire focus, and I mean this in no way to disparage game. Bang by Roosh is a great book. You should probably read it. If you're a young man, you should definitely read it. But it's very mercenary. It's like you're only after getting laid and then as soon as you get laid, you go and find another woman to get laid with, and the women are doing the exact same thing in their own manner with their careers and with their, their checklist, their feminist checklist, their merit badges. Instead of actually getting to know another person, like friendships are very mercenary. All of it. It's short-term thinking.
And here's another thing about Spider-Man that writers get wrong. Spider-Man is the everyman character more than most any other Marvel superhero. And a lot of writers don't understand where that appeal comes from. They think, well, he's the everyman character, so his life's got to be as normal as possible. So that means we can't have him on the Avengers. We can't have him be married, because for some reason Joe Quesada thinks people can't relate to someone being married. We can't have him, we can't have his life be nice ever. We got to constantly run him through the shitter. And what they don't understand is the everyman appeal of a character doesn't come from the situations they're in. It comes from how they handle the situations. If it came from the situations he was in, he shouldn't even be fucking Spider-Man. Because I don't do that the everyman doesn't go out and fight fucking supervillains in his day-to-day life, do they? So the situations are all metaphors
for what we all go through.
Exactly. It's how does he react to the situations? Does he react to the situations in a way the common man would? That's the question.
And it's that he is, at the end of the day, he doesn't have invulnerability. He has really good reflexes, but a bullet can still kill him. And he's a kid.
He can bench press a Ford F-150, but a bullet to the head still takes him out.
He's a pizza delivery boy, or whatever. I saw some of the recent movies. He's poor. Like, he has to think, do I go and solve this crime, or because I'll get fired from my job and I won't be able to pay rent if I do that?
Well, see, and again, that's a bit of a misconception. He's not always poor. He has money trouble sometimes. Sometimes he's doing quite well. Writers only want to write he's poor because that's kind of easier drama.
Yeah, they're going for the cheap, easy drama. So, it's in our personal lives, we all suffer these moral quandaries, these difficulties, what have you.
This is something comic book writers have a hard time with. They always want to run the characters through the shitter, and they don't realize, like they'll often say, like, oh, well, everybody remembers that Daredevil story Frank Miller wrote, Born Again, because, his life just went to hell. But they don't realize the lows don't mean nothing without the highs. If the character's life is just always shit, nobody cares.
Yeah, it's.
But anyways, in the mid-90s, and writers had been, ever since the marriage, basically trying to undo it because they can't just regurgitate the same, Peter stood up his date to go fight Doc Ock story a million times.
Well, it sounds like they're deeply immature.
And they just, he can't be married. No one can relate to that, blah, blah, blah. So in the mid-90s, they briefly had Spider-Man's clone take over for him and Peter retire in an attempt to capture the single Spider-Man again. But nobody liked that, so Peter came back, the clone died. Killed by the Green Goblin, because the Green Goblin's an asshole.
Total D-bag.
There was a time shortly after that it seemed like Mary Jane had been killed, but she had really been captured by some stalker. And again, that was, now he's a divorcee. We can make it depressing again, cheap drama. Finally, in 2007, they did a storyline where Spider-Man's aunt, which is his surrogate mom, was shot. And this storyline is so bad, so as I'm describing it, you're going to be like, none of this makes any sense. But she was shot, and she was dying in the hospital. And Spider-Man wants to save his aunt. And he goes all over the place. He talks to, fucking sorcerers and super scientists all over the fucking place, any of whom should have been able to fucking fix it. Because she's an old woman. She's like 104, but it's just a bullet wound. Nobody can fix it for reasons. Finally, Mephisto shows up, who is the devil in the Marvel Universe. And he's like, I can save your aunt. Well, what's he going to want? Is he going to want Peter's soul? Because that's what the devil wants. No, I want your marriage. Which doesn't make any fucking sense. So, Peter agrees, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And so then, Mephisto magically makes Aunt May all better, and Peter had never been married to MJ, although he had been living with her all this time, they just weren't married. And they just, for reasons, broke up just recently.
Will they get back together?
Jeez. And also, shortly before that story, Spider-Man's identity had been exposed, and they put that genie back in the bottle, which the only reason they exposed his identity, we would come to find out editorially, was to get to this point. It's a terrible fucking story, because first of all, Mephisto, the devil, he gets nothing out of this. He gets nothing out of this. They don't even remember it happened, so no one is suffering, except me, the reader.
Well, and it's, as the reader,
and here's the worst
catharsis.
Yeah, here's the worst part. Mary Jane always called Peter Tiger. Now, it's important to understand. That's her pet name for him. That's what she would be screaming mid-orgasm for him as they're fucking. All right, you got to understand that. After Mephisto does his magic, and everything is back to the way Joe Quesada remembers it as a kid, and a guy named Starskansky, who created Babylon 5, he was actually the writer on this, but it was very clearly Joe Quesada that pushed all of it, to the extent that JMS, the writer, he wanted his name taken off of it. So this was Joe Quesada's baby, the Marvel editor-in-chief, who pushed for this for a long time. So everything's back to normal. Peter wakes up in his bed, and you hear somebody downstairs. You see a little word bubble say, "Oh, I got breakfast ready, Tiger." He goes downstairs, and it's his aunt calling him Tiger. And then he does this really creepy fucking kiss her on the neck thing. And that's why I and a few other people said this. One More Day has gross fucking Oedipus complex shit all over it. All over it. Because look at it this way. What did he do? He gave up his wife for his mom.
Yeah, because the wife requires him in the dominant, responsible role. You know, being a husband is all about taking responsibility. I mean, you and I are both bachelors. We have no responsibility whatsoever in the world. You know, we can go die in a gutter with veins full of heroin tomorrow. Nobody gives a damn. We're just bachelors. We don't matter. But a husband, especially if you're a husband with children, you have these incredible responsibilities. You know, it is terrifying to recognize, like, you are responsible for providing for the family, for navigating the household, for making sure your kids grow up right, to make sure your wife is safe and provided for and feels appreciated, even though that you're away at work for 8 hours a day. It's terrifying responsibility being a man. Easier just to crawl back inside of yourself and suck on mummy's nipple.
Yeah. Now, when this story happened, everybody hated it. Everybody. Even people who didn't like the idea of Spider-Man being married hated it, because it was incredibly poorly written. It was full of plot holes you could drive a truck through, and not one character, up to and including the fucking devil, was written in character.
Listen, I don't even care about Spider-Man. I've never cared about Spider-Man, and I thought it was stupid. I had an opinion on it.
It was horrendously bad. Now, Joe Quesada would constantly defend it, because this is if it will ever be reversed, it will not be reversed while Joe Quesada is editor-in-chief at Marvel.
Well, and you know what? It's more fundamentally, from a meta level, what this event does is it erases the past, 5-10 years of comic books?
Oh, it's damn near 20.
20 years. 20 years of comic books that you've been paying for and reading and following faithfully are now gone and deleted, and they don't mean anything.
And when he's being
you wasted your time. You should have just stopped reading them.
Oh, yeah.
You wasted your fucking time.
I did stop reading Spider-Man, and I mean, I plowed through some rough stories in my long time of reading Spider-Man, and I was like done. I mean, I would hop in and out every once in a while just to check it out. I mean, you know, I sell comic back issues to people, so I get access to them. I read through them and all, but I was like done. And then it was made worse by every time he was interviewed, and immediately people were like, "What the fuck, man?" He's like, "Well, you know, I mean, comic book fans, they can't relate to being in a relationship with a beautiful woman." Yeah, that's a good plan. Insult your fucking customer base.
This is a lot about him.
Yeah. Oh, One More Day is a fucking autobiography of Joe Quesada, as far as I'm concerned. You know, One More Day is the story of how Joe Quesada wants to fuck his mom. I am on record of saying that.
The difference here. Now, if you take what was the final episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where it's like he goes into this future that winds up not existing? Mm-hmm. Now, you have various time travel stories. Actually, Tapestry is a great one. You have these various time travel stories in Star Trek where what happens in the story didn't actually happen, except it did to the character. So the story has catharsis. It's a what-if story. You know, so it's not canon, it didn't actually happen, but it has meaning to it. What they did with One More Day was remove all meaning for those past 20 years. Because it's not like those 20 years had a resolution. You know, it's not like the 20 years, if Peter had woken up out of a coma, or out of a Matrix computer, or something, and realized the past 20 years were a fantasy of his, and then, like that would at least have meaning to it. But no, he removed all meaning with his midichlorians.
It was horrendously bad.
It insults you for bothering to watch any of it or to read any of it.
And every time people complain, well, you're you fucking nerd. You don't know what it's like to get with a woman. And I'm like, maybe you don't, Joe.
All right, and this has been sneaking around the back of my mind the whole time you've been explaining this. This is what opens the door to parasites like Sarkeesian. Like,
how so?
All of her critiques, like her fundamental critique is that comic books and video games are prurient, and they pander to the lowest form of male desire. The 14-year-old, and honestly, I don't think any 14-year-old boy is actually this immature, but the stereotypical 14-year-old boy that wants to see bad guys getting blown up and just wants to see, what's the Angry Joe bit about ass and titties? You know, like this childish, can't take responsibility, just wants strippers and explosions, and thus the tropes are evil. According to Anita, tropes versus women. Tropes of literature and fiction are opposed to women. Unsure whether or not that includes trans women. If it's just femininity, but femininity is not a thing, right? Because men and women are the same. So it can't be tropes are opposed to femininity. Tropes must be opposed to women, those with double X chromosome. Not sure if that includes people with an XY chromosome who want to get breast implants.
Well, you have to remember, Irini, that these days you're whatever you say you are at any given time. And that's why I'm a Bulbasaur. I put that in an article in Reaction where I was talking about Brianna Wu. And, I made that point about trans stuff and all. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm a Bulbasaur. So, and somebody in the comments was like, the author is clearly a trans-hating, cisgendered Bulbasaur.
Yeah, this whole thing, it's any time that Miss Sarkeesian complains about her, even, you know what, quite frankly, she cherry picks her evidence. She doesn't play the bloody video games. Doesn't know what she's talking about. Yeah. Let's pretend we live in fantasy world where Anita Sarkeesian actually makes valid complaints. where she doesn't manipulate the bodies of dead strippers to make it look like that's the reason you play the game, to impress feminists that don't play video games. Let's pretend she is actually complaining about, like, One More Day. She's complaining that this is juvenile masculinity that refuses to take responsibility for their actions and just wants a reset button, so he abandons his wife and goes and sleeps with the mistress. Now, yeah, that would actually be a really great feminist frequency critique. Hey, Anita, take this one as a freebie. You know, like, go do something useful with your miserable life and actually make some valid critiques. But it's like this whole, every critique she has, like women in refrigerators. Again, it's a trope. It's one of the ways you can create dramatic fiction is to have somebody's significant other murdered, and so they go on a revenge spree. Yeah, that's basically the story of The Punisher. Right? But when it's used in a ham-fisted manner, it stands out and it's terrible and nobody likes it. Which is exactly One More Day.
Even the example, the women in the refrigerator example that is cited, the actual woman in the refrigerator, that's not a bad example in my mind. I think that's actually really cool. Because in the story, there was a new Green Lantern. Kyle Rayner had become the Green Lantern. He didn't want to be the Green Lantern, but it got thrust upon him. And at first he's like, I don't really want to do this. And his girlfriend's like, no, you got to do this. It's fucking cool. You know, you're go be a man. You know, man the fuck up. And she basically gets him to man the fuck up. So that makes it much more powerful when very shortly in his career as Green Lantern, a supervillain finds who he is, comes to his house, kills his girlfriend, and stuffs her in a refrigerator. That's some gnarly shit to get over.
Well, and isn't that, we were just talking about Spider-Man, isn't that the exact story of Spider-Man with his uncle?
Yeah, you never hear about parental figure in the refrigerator. And, you know, I mean, Batman's parents, Spider-Man's uncle, you know, hell, well, actually, Superman's whole fucking planet.
If you go to TV Tropes, I'm sure you can find that reference. But this is the thing. It's absolutely evident that Miss Sarkeesian did nothing but scour TV Tropes for anything that was vaguely offensive to women in the most narrow-minded and narcissistic manner possible. And
the bitch Gail Dines, who used to be a pretty decent writer, but now she's shit. And she's this feminist fat fuck. And she's the one that had a hissy fit over the writer Ron Mars over the women in the refrigerator, probably because she was going through the change of life. Fuck Gail Dines. Seriously, you know what? Fuck Miss Dines, if you should happen to listen to this, go fuck yourself. Man, and you know what? I used to love a lot of Gail Dines' writings, but ever since I wrote that review of fucking her shitty new Red Sonja series on my blog, and she retweeted it and fucking had a bunch of snarky comments about it like a teenage girl. You are a professional fucking writer, woman. That's not how you handle a bad review.
Well, she's a feminist that hangs out with evangelicals, and I think that tells you a lot about feminists and evangelicals.
Nothing worse than a fucking blue pill conservative.
But anyway, so the problem with One More Day is that it's written by a man-child. You know, it deserves to be... The thing is, this is not a problem with the audience. When any of this... Listen, pretending that Anita had valid complaints, like we both know that her complaints are founded upon finding something to complain about. But there are critiques to be made. And they are critiques of the medium, and it's when the medium is abused by the creators in it. And that's what we're talking about with One More Day. It's not that the audience is prurient and can't handle Spider-Man being married. It's that the guy in charge couldn't handle that.
It was the single worst comic I'd ever read on an emotional level. Because first of all, it's incredibly poorly done. Take aside what it was trying to accomplish, it does it very, very badly. You know, if I was so inclined to go from point A to point B like that to get Spider-Man, I could think of dozens of ways I could actually write a decent story that did that accomplished that.
You know, I had a number of friends in the stand-up comic community back in Calgary, and I don't know if it's the stand-up comic community or if it's just people in general, but it's a very blue pill, pro-feminist, don't want to offend anybody. I mean, the irony that comics are terrified of offending people. Maybe it's a Canadian thing, since comics in Canada have actually been prosecuted for their humor being offensive. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe it's that I'm just so far away from blue pill that everyone's blue pill in my world. But
offensive comedians.
Yeah, the point is that there is no such thing as an offensive joke. There is only a bad joke. Anytime somebody complains about a joke being offensive, it's never a funny joke that gets complained about being offensive. It's always a joke that fell flat, a joke that failed, that they consider offensive.
Well, with some people, every joke is offensive because they have no sense of humor. I mean, you know, you mentioned feminists and evangelicals, and they're key at the top of that fucking list.
Well, was it? Who was it? Somebody made it's Mr. Conductor.
George Carlin.
George Carlin. He had a routine where he said even rape can be offensive. Imagine Porky Pig raping Elmer Fudd.
Yeah, even rape could.
Nobody ever complained about that joke because it was funny. Because like the mental image, hey, it's you can't. It's a funny joke. It's a dumb joke, but it's a funny joke, even though it's about rape. Whereas
anytime a feminist says, like, on Twitter or something, like, rape is never funny, I always just tweet back, but what about when it's funny? And then my favorite is, imagine a clown raping a clown. And they're like, that's not funny. I'm like, but what if the nose honked? As the face is being pushed into the dirt.
See, it's the irony being, like, of course, humor is a reaction against horrible things. Every joke involves suffering. Humor is us laughing at the devil and laughing at death. But
yeah, I once heard a theologian said there would be no humor in heaven for the same reason there would be no hospitals.
Yeah, I like that observation. That sounds that there would be the joyful laughter, but there wouldn't be humor because there would be nothing to be humorous about. Humor relies upon misery, and in fact, most art relies upon misery. Even art of things that are beautiful are about like the gap, the chasm between us and that beauty. There's this one sculpture I saw, I believe it's called Faith. And it's the sculpture of a young girl praying with perfect faith in God. And is the most amazing and beautiful depiction of the human form I've ever seen. And it is beyond any human perfect. Like no human is that perfect. It's an amazing sculpture, and it's painful to look at because that beautiful and perfect faith this young girl has is unobtainable in us or in reality. But I was going somewhere with this humor, though, is that they complain about the humor when it's a joke that falls flat. Or if it's a joke that was actually a really funny joke. The example of the prosecuted Canadian, there are these two lesbians that it was an open mic night, and so there were a lot of amateurs getting up on stage, which is very nerve-wracking for a first-time comedian. And they were heckling all of these first-comers up on stage. They're being bitches. And so he got up on stage. He was the MC of the whole thing. And to keep the spirit going, he said, you two aren't even lesbians. You're just so ugly nobody else will fuck you. Which is fucking hilarious. And I'm sure, like, the crowd loved it. Well, like, of the 15 people that were actually there at the bar, they loved it. But these two nasty pieces of work went and complained to the Human Rights Tribunal, and out of context, without a video recording, without anything, like, misconstrued, it sounds like a homophobic joke. Did you ever see the video of Kramer making racist remarks?
Yeah, I saw that he, I guess some black guy heckled him. He started spouting out racial slurs at him or something.
Well, I recommend everybody go and watch this video. But understand, first of all, that this guy, he played Kramer on Seinfeld. I can't remember his real name.
Michael Richards.
Michael Richards, thank you. He was not a stand-up comedian. He had never done stand-up. The only reason he was doing stand-up was because he'd been on Seinfeld. And stand-up is a unique form of... You need to know how an audience works. And so he was out of his depth. First of all, this guy was completely out of his depth. And so then he's at this club where he is getting heckled rather viciously. And it was apparently by a bunch of black guys, which is really neither here. It just happened to be a bunch of black guys heckling him. And his supposed racist remarks that he made were that you ought to be strung up by the nose.
Oh, is that what it is? It wasn't even like...
Well, have you ever heard you live in the South, or you live pretty close to the South, right?
Well, I know the lynching and all.
So you have lots of racist friends.
Oh yeah, tons of them.
Have you ever heard anybody say string up that Negro by the nose?
No, I pretty much hear, you don't hang somebody by the nose. That doesn't even make sense.
What Michael Richards was doing on that video, he was trying to deal with the heckling. He was trying to make a racist joke that wasn't racist. Because, nobody says string up by the nose. He was, they were calling him a honky, and so he was trying to pretend to be racist for comedic effect. But he was out of his depth, and he told a joke that wasn't funny. So everybody fucking complained about it.
When people accuse me of being racist, I always tell them, hey, my best friend is Native American, and that's close enough.
But what this boils down to, it's an issue of censorship. Because if you start censoring offensive jokes, listen, you can not write a legal definition of an offensive joke. An offensive joke is just a joke that was not funny. And nobody has yet figured out what funny is. If we had computers, we'd be doing all our comedy for us.
Yeah, there's a reason data can't tell jokes.
The same thing goes for tropes versus women. Tropes just are, if you abuse a trope, it's a bad story, and everybody can point to that trope that you misused in the story. But that's just a bad story. It's not that the trope is offensive. It's not that it's anti-woman or anti-whatever. It's just the story. It's either a good story or a bad story. And a bad story is going to be hackneyed and predictable and full of obvious tropes.
Yeah, a trope is just a shorthand. It's just a shortcut. And, stories have to be certain lengths, so sometimes you have to take a shortcut.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun. It's that we've been writing stories for so long that there's now a shorthand of mechanisms used in plots. It's that bloody simple. And if it's sexist, if it's actually whatever sexist means nowadays, but I think both you and I, if somebody, I keep hearing about these gore novels from Jordan. I'm pretty sure if you and I read the gore novels, we wouldn't like them. Just because they're bad stories. Or because they're simplistic and fantastic and...
The only time I ever heard of gore novels before Jordan was I heard that there was a subset of BDSM called Gorian philosophy, which was just just people have to throw a fancy fucking word on top of their goddamn fetish these days. But it was just a fancy way of saying, BDSM where the man is dominant.
Except the woman's always backleading.
And I was like, well, what the hell does gore mean? So, like, Gorian or something. And so I, Googled it, and I was like, oh, it's based on some novels. Because you can't just have a fetish. You have to fucking philosophize it. So you don't...
I think that it might be very comparable to torture porn. Have you seen the Hostel movie?
Yes. Well, half of it. I remember years ago with my girlfriend at the time, she rented it. And I mean, I love horror movies, but I got like 30, 40 minutes into it, maybe like probably about halfway, and I was like, shut it off. This sucks. Because it's 10 minutes of softcore porn followed by a snuff film.
Yeah, it's an hour of boredom with utterly stereotypical characters and you know who's going to die and who's going to live right from the first 5 minutes. It's got 10 minutes of softcore porn in it, and then it's got 20 minutes of extreme violence. But it's very hollow. There's no horror to the movie.
Hostel was one of the first horror movies that didn't get the point that, like, if the characters, if my protagonists are assholes, then I don't care that they're getting tortured.
It's the sort of movie where it offends me. It's not really offensive in and of itself. It's kind of gross, but I've seen enough whatever, it doesn't bother me. I'm offended by the movie because people like it. Because there's no character development. By the time you get to the torture scenes, I hate everybody in the movie. I hate the protagonist, I hate the bad guys, I just want a nuclear bomb to go off and that for them all to die, because they're...
Like, everyone calls the Saw movies torture porn, but at least the first couple of ones had cool mysteries in them. I only saw, like, the first two, I think. But I liked them. I liked the mystery element to it. There's none of that in Hostel. It's just like, here's some titties, and here's some blood.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? There is a prurient audience that seems to like these movies for some frickin' reason. And that depresses me. Because, listen, include all the violence, include all the body horror, include, all right, we were talking about Alien. Alien is chock full of body horror. And the body horror in Alien and Aliens, I absolutely love. Alien 4, I hate it. Because it doesn't serve any narrative purpose. And you know what? There is this weird cult of fetishists, or whatever they are, that just love seeing the torture porn.
Right, well, there's a weird group of fetishists that love the gore novels, apparently.
And let's extend this metaphor into porn itself. Let's say because it's not the nipple or the vagenes, the vagoos, the vaginis, the vagagas. That's not what makes porn. Okay, it's like if you banned all that stuff, all you would do is ruin good cinema. Like look at Japan. Okay, like you ban all that stuff from appearing on cinema. You're just gonna have a woman squirting eels out of her vagina, but behind a screen.
Or cartoons with octopus demons.
Like, you're still going to have porn. I'm sorry, you're going to have the Saw movies no matter what. They depress me, I wish they didn't exist, but you're going to have them.
Yeah, as long as there's communication, there'll be porn. I'm pretty sure the second thing ever drawn on a cave was tits.
I wish the gore novels didn't exist. I wish that, prurient garbage didn't exist, but it does. And that's just, there's people out there that want that stuff. I mean, porn does not exist because men hate women or men treat women like objects. It's because there are people that will pay for it.
Yeah, porn exists because there's people... Porn exists because people want to have sex, and when they can't have sex, they'll settle for watching people have sex.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no greater, more grandiose, systemic reason that it exists other than that.
I mean, you know what? If we were a morally perfect species, there wouldn't be any porn because we'd be too busy having sex with our wives.
Yeah, but that's not the world we live in.
No, it's not. And in the perfect world, every horror movie that had a lot of bloody violence would be Alien. Instead, we get a lot of torture porn garbage.
In a perfect world, there'd be no One More Day or Anita Sarkeesian. That's a really good point. She could tear that thing to pieces, but she probably doesn't even know it exists.
Well, and she'd actually have to read it. She'd actually have to do some work to criticize it.
I'm not sure Anita Sarkeesian exists. I think it's all done with mirrors.
I mean, like, with all of her video game tropes, and I'm actually paraphrasing one of the people we talked to in the documentary, but it's like, he would say, because I've watched her stuff, but it's so forgettable, you know? It's like she only plays sandbox-type games, she only plays the first few levels, and she goes around looking for stuff to complain about that she can, you know, like she'll spend like 3 hours playing it one evening, and then another 8 hours the next day recording the footage of her playing it, and then she's done.
Well, she likes to rip on Mario games, I know a lot, which it always amazes me that fucking Bob Chipman will defend her so much when she shits on his favorite thing in the world. I mean, I love Mario too, but I'm not all autistic about it like fucking Bob. I never thought Mario was my friend.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
Did you read my review of his book?
I did. I'm almost tempted to buy it, but...
Oh, it's... For those of you who don't know, Movie Bob wrote a book about Mario 3. And the idea of the book was that he was going to talk about the history of the Mario franchise as well as Mario 3. And then do a complete analysis of every single level in the game. And there's a lot of levels in that game, obviously. It was one of the first games that had the overview world map that Mario has now. And, there were levels you could skip if you wanted to, but he does them all.
Yeah, it actually sounds like a really enticing book that I would love.
Parts of it are good. When he's actually on topic, it's pretty decent. It's nothing groundbreaking. You're not going to see Mario in a whole new light. It's not like the Game Theorist, whose channel I love. But it's decent analysis. He has a good grasp of what made the game so special. What makes it a great game, even to this day. As is always the case, when Bob's actually doing what Bob should be doing, he's pretty good. But then he starts in on like before each level, he decides to read a passage from his Hello Kitty diary. And literally, he's like having personal journals about what's going on in his life as he's doing this playthrough. And he talks about his personal history, and he goes completely off track, like completely off topic. He basically shoehorns his autobiography into this fucking thing.
Didn't he have like a huge section about moving out on his own the first time?
Well, no, as he's playing the game, he's looking for an apartment. His very first apartment, I might add, at the tender young age of 31.
You know how my first apartment came about?
How's that?
My dad kicked me out of the house at 17, and so I caught a bus to Hamilton, stayed at a friend's place the first night, then wandering about, on my own with a backpack, found an apartment, and then I found a job the next day. That's my first apartment.
I mean, look, I get it's Obama's economy. I get why a lot of people are fucking living at home still. I've always had a roommate of some kind.
Oh, don't get me wrong. Listen, I completely disagree with Aaron Clary on this. Paying for rent is fucking stupid. All right, I spent my entire 20s paying for rent, and I have nothing to show for it.
I get that. There's the old joke that, a boomer looks at his kid and says, why won't your generation move out of the house? And the kid looks at him and says, because your generation grenaded the economy and we can't find jobs. And there's something to that. I mean, obviously, the fact that a lot of my generation is fucking worthless has no idea what the hell they're doing is part of that too. But I get it, Bob. You're like, okay, fine, but don't. Why? What does this fucking have to do with Mario? None of it is. It's everything that isn't about Mario in that book is either boring or sad.
You know what it is? He is the classic gamma male. I know. I just did a video on this. I don't remember what I said exactly, but I know I linked to Vox's blog, and he's been talking about this. How the gamma wants to pretend to be an alpha male, and so one of the ways they do this is they refuse to ever lose an argument. And the way they never lose an argument is they never admit when they're wrong. They never admit that they've lost. They constantly shift what their position is. They attack straw men. And this is what Bob is doing. Like, you ask, why is he defending Sarkeesian when she attacks such a meaningful game of his? Well, she's not really attacking it. She's attacking the sexist attitude of people that play Mario, but not him. He's one of the good ones.
Oh, she's attacking Mario, Bob. It's like, this person's pissing on something I love, and I'm still like, yeah, they're awesome.
The guy he can never admit when he's wrong. Listen, they asked him to apologize over The Escapist. And he refused. I mean, he posted that sarcastic apology.
Yeah, I remember when he first had to apologize, and it was, he had that half-assed apology. And finally, they got rid of him, and it's going to be tough for him if he doesn't pull his head out of his ass. Yeah, he's on Patreon and he's getting more money than he deserves from idiots, but you know, Patreon's getting pretty fucking crowded here lately because SJW's got nowhere else to run to. So, you know, he's not a woman. He's not even a fake woman like Brianna Wu. So he's not going to be able to get that sweet white knight ducats. He's going to quickly find out that he's really fucked himself. I mean, at this point, the best he could hope for is Lindsay Ellis takes him in over her fucking sewer pipe of a site. Shay's Apocalypse.
Well, he can hope that he gets new opportunities. But here's the thing. Movie Bob, and this is gamma male behavior, will never admit he's wrong. He didn't get fired from The Escapist. He left because of principles. Like, I guarantee you, if you approached him like you didn't know anything about The Escapist, that would be his story. Is that they were corrupt and gave in to moneyed interests, and so he had to leave. And it was a mutual da-da-da-da-da-da. He has never lost a fight in his life. He has never been beaten up in his life.
Man, I think we both know that's fucking untrue.
Well, no, but he never admitted that he lost the fight.
I'm a nerd, and I kind of want to push him into a locker.
He's the sort of nerd that makes you understand bullies and sympathize with them.
Yeah, he makes you take a look at yourself like, ooh, was I coming off like that?
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Movie Bob is that a mirror darkly. Dark reflection of if we'd all gone down a different route.
Somebody on my Ask FM said, like, you remind me of Movie Bob, except for that you're not a socialist weasel and you don't have that godforsaken Boston accent. And I was like, so I'm Movie Bob minus the terrible parts. But then I started to think about it, and I'm like, you know, I look at Movie Bob like, man, there but by the grace of God go I. Like, oh, that could have been me.
I think we all do. And the thing is, he's gonna continue to offend his user base as time goes on.
Yeah, that's why I find his descent into madness so fascinating. I mean, I've written 3 articles about him on Reaction. I'm like, man, I gotta make sure I don't write anything. I don't want to be the fucking resident Movie Bob expert over Reaction.
But, you know, let me put it this way. I made an incorrect statement about Aristotle and Plato recently, where I attributed I thought it was Plato that knew how many teeth women had just by his pure logic. It's actually Aristotle who made that screw up. And somebody corrected me on that, and I put a note on the video saying, you know what, folks, I screwed that part up. Now, in the short term, that makes me look like an idiot. When I've gone to all the work of making a video and I screw up a basic fact in it, it makes me look like an idiot when I admit that in the video. But over the long term, if I refuse to admit that I'm wrong, then people are going to start noticing. And I'm not going to have any long-time subscribers. People one by one are going to start, unsubscribing from my channel. And the only way I will maintain any income from that is by pursuing, new suckers. Same thing, Movie Bob, he has, how much is he getting a month right now?
I'd have to look it up. I'm not sure. Too much, but it's probably enough for him to live off of.
Well,
but not well. Not high on the hog by any stretch.
If the guy had any wherewithal, he'd move somewhere cheap and he would live high off the hog, but that would require, effort.
The guy's a talented man. Let me put it this way. He's a talented man. He knows what he's doing on making videos. If he'd pull his head out of his ass, stop swallowing the SJW poison and stop being a dick to his audience, he could probably be making 4 to 5 times what he's making.
He needs to be able to admit that he's wrong. That's honestly what it all boils down to. Because right now, if he says something that pisses off his audience, let's say I was making fun of Transformers earlier. Now, the way I'm sure I probably have a couple of people that like Transformers. Nobody was offended. It's just my opinion. But Bob would make that statement while riding his high horse and saying anybody that disagreed with him was a scumbag, libertarian, neo-Nazi skinhead. and he would offend a portion of his audience. And he'd say, no, fuck you, I'm right. See, I have all these facts, and Transformers is racist. And he's going to offend that portion. And then 2 weeks later, he's going to do something. Bit by bit, he's going to drive these people off because he cannot admit that he's wrong.
I'll give Bob a little bit of credit, though. He doesn't on Twitter, at least. He doesn't hide behind the block button. So that puts him at least a step higher than most of his peers.
What? Again, I'm sorry, that's typical Gamma male behavior. The Gamma, he's too stupid to even know when he lost an argument. It's not that he has the courage. Listen, if Bob went up to a UFC champion, some guy that's 6'6", weighs 300 pounds, and it's all muscle, and his lip is twitching with roid rage, and if Bob went up to him and started making fun of him for trying too hard, that's not because Movie Bob is brave.
Well, he's got his Captain N game pistol next to him.
Exactly. And even when he's, beaten with broken bones, laying on the cement, and everyone's saying, stay down, he's going to be like, you're still a faggot. Her Majesty shows up, please, stay down, my subject. No, he'll fucking keep getting up and getting his ass kicked, because he never loses a fight.
Oh, poor Bob. Poor Bob. Such wasted potential.
And that's really the tragedy, is that he has quite a bit of potential. If he'd just get over himself and stop trying to... Dude, Movie Bob, you're a fat dork that needs to work out more.
He talks about in the book how he was going to the gym a lot. I'm like, I don't buy that for a second.
Maybe he was going to... What's that gym with the meathead alarm?
No, I don't even think he was going to that gym. I don't even think the guys played Wii Fit Sports or anything.
What? I can't believe that we are letting these people influence our society. I mean, these social justice warriors, they are broken people. They are There's one thing Clary said in the interview that Jordan's a little bit iffy about including this, but I think it's quite necessary. Where Clary points out that like all these people are crazy, they're all in therapy, they're all on drugs and whatnot, and Jordan was saying, well, we don't want to hurt people's feelings that are in therapy, and it's like no, like I agree with him there, but I don't think that's not the thrust of what Aaron's saying. You know, it's like, dude, you're overweight. You still made it all the way to the top of Angel's Landing. And how many people have died on that slope in the past 10 years?
Yeah, and I'm also doing something about it, too.
Yeah, exactly. None of us are perfect. You know, I'm far from perfect, believe me. You know, we've got... Hey, if you're in therapy, you're in therapy. You know, we're all trying to improve ourselves. The thing is that you and me and the rest of gamers, we're not making constant excuses for ourselves. We're not wallowing in our failures.
Yeah, we're not walking around acting like we're not walking around acting like we are perfect. We're not. I mean,
we don't pretend that our failures are stigmata.
Yeah, these people that will call you disgusting. You know, what was it, Sarah Butts or something on Twitter? You know, it's like she'll call you a disgusting misogynist troll, and she'll take the dog dick out of her mouth just long enough to do it. You talk to these social justice warriors, and they'll call you all these names when they're, Moot will be like, "Oh, you're just an evil, scummy loser." Meanwhile, he's like, "But cuckolding is the thinking man's fetish."
But did he actually say that?
From what I understand, I mean, I've seen screenshots. I guess they could be faked, but apparently he did. And he's certainly not denying it.
All right, you gotta elaborate on this.
Moot, the founder of 4chan, is apparently on record saying that cuckolding is the thinking man's fetish.
Did he offer any elaboration or explanation?
I believe it was on some sort of talk about cuckolding. I don't know. I don't particularly frequent cuckold boards, but
well, I can sympathize with the bull.
He's it's funny. My one
God,
friend
we're a trashy generation. We are a trashy generation.
My one friend Cameron said, I think he's right, because whereas most fetishes are active, cuckolding gives you a lot of time to think, primarily about what the fuck happened to my life.
Actually, you know what? That statement of his actually makes a lot of sense, but not in the way he hopes it makes sense. It's like when you are such... Yeah, C.S. Lewis wrote about men with no chests, right? About how we either have guys with really big brains or really big genitals, but there's no chests nowadays. The real man is a combination of the aspects of the intellect, the airy-fairy, pontificating, mathematical fucking bullshit. But also the genitals, the stomach, the fire of life, the animal urges. And the chest is where virtue lies. Heroism, courage, virility. Like true, like not the base virility of rutting like an animal, but like the of choosing a woman and making her your wife. This is all stuff in the chest. And so I think Moot is absolutely right. If you've got no genitals and no chest, then cuckolding might be for you.
But yeah, these people...
How depressing is it that... Do you think we need to explain to our audience what cuckold porn is?
I would rather not.
I don't think we need to. Welcome to the
it.
foul year of our Lord 2015. You all know what cuckolding porn is.
Google it with your safe search on.
Somebody needs to buy him a pair of horns. Now, maybe 10% of the audience knows what that is.
Oh, jeez. But it's like, that's the other thing about them. Like, these people, these fucking Tumblrites, they, like, take the fucking, the worst porn you've ever jerked off to. That thing that you're ashamed of. Like, man, I can't believe I was so fucking horned up. I jerked
4
off
hours
to that.
into it.
Shit.
Yeah. We've all done foul things.
Yeah, like, that's your identity. Like, I watched a fucking donkey show jerk off, so that's what I'm all about now. That's the Tumblrette fucking mentality.
I actually had this guy on Twitter criticizing me. I made the mistake of clicking the link to his Tumblr, and his Tumblr was nothing but pictures of his own asshole. I mean, like, I don't even think I need to get Freudian with it. And it wasn't a very attractive asshole either, you know. It's like it was like a 4 out of 10 when it comes to assholes. And it was an asshole.
4 out of 10. Would not asshole again.
Yeah. and like you're calling me a terrible person, and you run a website where you post pictures of your own asshole. And I swear that's like the only content. It is like I scrolled through a few. Like I mean, in for a dime, in for a dollar. You know.
Davis is like, I got a whole folder now.
I've got the straight porn and the other porn folder. No, it's like I'm already. You know, I can't unsee this. Like 3 pages I scrolled down, and
the
it's
straight porn and the I'm sorry, Jesus.
And it is nothing but pictures. It's not even like pictures of his dick or anything, or pictures of him. It's just pictures of his asshole from various zoom angles and.
You know, now that I think about it, I can't imagine that's an easy angle to get.
I guess if there's any artistic merit in it.
I mean, the guy must be flexible.
I mean, you know, like, and this is what you were just saying. Like take the most degenerate, gangbang, whatever porn take the worst porn you've watched. It at least has some artistic merit. Like, there's at least a challenge in filming this, and this guy just takes pictures of his own asshole. With a cell phone problem, like a fucking iPhone.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's got to be some skill involved. I am literally thinking about it. I'm like, that cannot be a very easy angle to get. I mean, unless you got like a timer delay on the camera or something.
What a successful human being. I'm sure his parents are proud.
Got a whole folder. Well, these days you could probably put it in a fucking museum.
Oh, yeah. If you've been watching Sargon's recent videos analyzing feminist products, then there you go.
I love Sargon stuff.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys I'm really glad I discovered after Gamergate.
Yeah, I'm ashamed to even be talking about this stuff, but it's there. You know, it's...
Well, that's the point. These people have... What I said about the gore novels and all. Someone has to philosophize their fetish. You know, it's not just, well, you know, I'm a guy who likes to be a sadist in bed. Or I'm a chick who likes a dude who's really, really fucking rough in bed. No, you have to fucking philosophize it. You have to make this your... You know, not just what you do in bed, but your lifestyle.
I didn't go out looking for a guy that took pictures of his own asshole. You know, it's...
But that's probably his life. That's the point. That's probably what he's all about.
But he does this, and he gets a Twitter account connected to his site, and then he starts bothering me about political and philosophical opinions while linking to it. It's like this guy does not even have the dignity of having a separate Twitter account for his political opinions and for his pictures of his own asshole.
Gotta compartmentalize that stuff.
I do not care if J. Edgar Hoover dressed in women's clothing or not. That is... Dude, everybody's into weird stuff. We know that. Thank you, Internet. I don't judge. But J. Edgar Hoover had the dignity not to do that while in office. Who was the Roman senator that married a goat or something?
I think he married a horse. But
Or the emperor? Yeah, he married a horse.
But see, that's the thing. It's like J. Edgar Hoover didn't write long diatribes in his journal about, like I said, philosophizing why women wears women's clothes. Like these freaks on Tumblr that are into like the weirdest fucking shit. They have to have some sort of political, philosophical reason why they're fucking behind it. Like, the guy who's all into cuckold porn is talking about how it stops white privilege because the bull is black or something.
Oh god, and I actually wrote a post about that when I first discovered cuckold porn. About the contempt, the inherent contempt for the black bull. Like there is so much, like it is, racially based cuckold porn is racial hatred distilled. It is the purest form of racial hatred that you can get upon this earth. I mean, like, Satan has better forms of racial hatred, but outside of the realm of pure spirit, it's like it dehumanizes everybody involved.
Well, porn is just a look into the id.
The pure, irrational, destructive id. And you know what? We are at the time now. Again, the Roman emperor marrying his horse. Was it Nero?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, folks.
I couldn't tell you,
folks. I'm rough on that period of history.
Nero fiddled. That's about all I know about Nero.
But this is where we are now, where listen. 80 years ago, people were having all sorts of degenerate orgies. Like the flapper girls. Germany, post-war Germany was freaking crazy if you were a guy. But it was all sub rosa. People kept themselves, and it's like they'd go have an orgy on Saturday night, but by Monday they were back at work. Nowadays we have people that want to show up at work in furry costumes.
There was a furry convention in my area one time, and I knew about it because I saw it on the news, and I don't know, they couldn't have not known. They're reporting it on the news like it's just another Comic Con. You know what I mean? Like, this is a con for people that like to dress as animals. And I'm like, you're bearing the lead here. Like, that's irresponsible. Some parents could accidentally try to take their kids to that, all right?
Yeah, when teddy bears were first introduced, people objected to them because they said it would warp little girls' mothering instincts. Doesn't sound so stupid nowadays, does it?
Oh man, I'm a fan of the old Sonic cartoon, like the one with Princess Sally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like furries almost ruined that for me because I can't even talk about it to anybody. Like, hey, this cartoon was actually really good. It's like, what is Princess Sally your waifu? You fucking fur fag? Because if you Google her, it's rough.
Yep. Yeah, good word. Like 10 years ago, I saw like cartoon porn of various cartoon characters from when we were kids. And it's at the time, you know what? Some of these cartoons have complex characters with real personality that you might have had a crush on when you were a kid. Yeah, and I just took it as that. So now that we're adults and we're sexually aware, now here's Princess Sally naked. But no, that's not. No, we need to go deeper than that. We need to get weirder than that. We now need to dress up in fur costumes to relive this fantasy life.
Because you're an otherkin fucking squirrel.
And you wonder why the birth rate is 1.4.
What the hell do you want to bring a kid into this world?
Oh my god.
It's like, hey, best you could hope for is you get to be John Connor.
Pretty much. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the collapse. I just want to establish myself a bit better first. Once I've got the compound. Once I've got the compound with a bunch of gardens and some large tanks of gasoline beneath the surface and some large tanks of water above surface. You know,
Isn't that what Mike and Asinoff or whatever was doing?
Well, except I'm going to be living there with my wife and my dogs. I'm not going to be living there with a bunch of guys.
I know you had a beef with him a while back. I don't know what that was, because that was before I really discovered you, I think.
I never had a beef with him. I think he might have a beef with me. I'm not sure. I
know Matt Forney did too, but Matt Forney's got a beef with everybody. So
that's why I love the guy.
He blocked me on Twitter, I discovered, and I asked him why on like Ask FM. I'm like, what's up with that? I got no beef with you, and he was like, I don't remember, but you're unblocked now. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and I figured maybe it was because I was friends with you and Matt or something.
Do we want to do a third hour of this podcast and focus on the neo-reactionary movement?
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right, I'm going to piss off a lot of people with this, but we'll stop talking about guys posting pictures of their own ass. Well, actually, we might not. I mean, degeneracy is going to be the word of the day. But I think we're pretty much done with the Gamergate topic at this point. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I've only got so much to say on it, and if I don't have anything to say, I want to shut my mouth. So I think we said a bunch of good stuff, and if we say anything more, it'll just be dumb.
Alrighty.
All right, if you want to hear about internet politics, folks, tune in for Hour 3. And remember, check out the Bechtloff channel. Like I said, at least 50% of his videos will be really, really good. All right, we will be back.